Hello, everyone. Before we dive into today's episode, I wanted to remind you that my book, Drummers on Drumming, is available now on Amazon as both a paperback and an ebook. Based on the Big Fat Five segment of this podcast, where I sit down with my favorite drummers to discuss the 5 records and stories that shaped their approach to the instrument, this book is packed with insights from the drummers who redefined how we think about the modern drum set. You can grab your copy now by checking the link in this episode's show notes or simply searching Drummers on Drumming on Amazon. So thank you for all the support, and now let's get into the show. Hello. My name is Ben Hilsinger, and you are listening to the Big Fat Snare Drum Podcast. Today's guest is Raghav Mehrotra. The kid's been playing since he was 3, and to be honest, by the time he was 5, he was probably already better than I am. He started on Broadway for a few years in the School of Rock, while still physically going to school every day. I mean, the kid's a workhorse. He's an insane player, and I know he's going to be on a lot of killer records in the future. And you'll see by the conversation we have that he's an old soul. You think you're talking to a veteran of the craft, and to be honest, with how much he's already done at such a young age, he kind of already is. So enjoy my conversation with Raghav. All right, I'm here with Raghav Mehrotra. Thanks for being on the show, man.
Thank you for having me. Super excited.
Yeah, and I know that we had to postpone it because I got a little bit of water on my computer, which is also why there was no show last week. So thanks for being so flexible, man. I appreciate it.
Of course.
So you are one of the most exciting drummers right now. I'll say it because your age. I won't say your actual age unless you want to. But you're one of the youngest drummers, and also one of the youngest drummers that I think has a respect for the history of drums the way you do. Because when I watch you play, I see you pulling from, and we'll get into it today, obviously, but you pull from the greats, which is astounding for someone of your age and just in general. So it's always fun to watch you play for that reason.
Yeah, I mean, you have to go back to the roots when you're playing. That's where it all started. So I think it's just best to get it from the source, you know?
I agree. Which is kind of selfishly why I started this format, because I am the first to admit that I grew up in the late 90s, early 2000s, and my the things that I pull from, I wish were a little different. Not that I, am upset with my upbringing, but yeah, that's why I have people like you on. So for those of you who don't know the format, it's still just the specific drumming moments that you pull from that have made you kind of the drummer you are today. I asked for 5, and just, I'm assuming you're an overachiever in everything you do in your life, but you gave me 8. Yeah. So thank you for that. But yeah, let's just start off, man. Let's, John Bonham, In the Time of Dying, and it's minute 8:49 to 8:54. All right, man. Obviously, that's the great, John Bonham. But what specifically do you pull from that?
I mean, it's John Bonham, first of all, the absolute GOAT. I mean, he's, in my eyes, I think, at least probably the most influential drummer on my playing, because he was one of the first drummers that I started listening to when I was really young. And specifically this album, Physical Graffiti, I was doing this performance-based program called School of Rock in my hometown, and they have shows in which you basically learn a genre, or you learn an artist's music, like note for note, and you play it at a show. So they assign songs for different people. So I got this song as a drum song for me, and the person that I am, I went and learned every single song on the album, but still this song stood out so much to me just because of the absolute power of his fills. And it really put the drums in the forefront. I wasn't exactly consciously thinking of that at the time, but what he played, I think, has shaped over the time that I've heard it, and over the time that I've listened to his playing and listening to this specific part over and over and over again, has definitely shaped how I approach playing fills on the toms and the snare. Not just keeping it light, and especially you can get into that with jazz and stuff. Like I'm so guilty of like getting the quiet little nuances, but when need be,
I wish I was guilty of that.
but when need be, putting the power in those fills, and that it's not always the simplicity or the complexity of the fills that's the focus, but they're just so powerful that it brings the drums to the front. I think I'm so in love with those fills. Every time I hear those fills, it's just one of those, like, you have those ooh moments where you make those like really weird faces. It's like you have like the playing drum faces and you have like the listening drum faces. I made the worst face when listening to this one. It's just unbelievable.
Well, that feels cool too. I mean, I know you were just saying that it's not about the simplicity, but that fill, I mean, a lot of the things that people love about John is his like, what's he doing there, and trying to figure it out. But that's just eighth notes. Yeah. It's like, I mean, he's kind of he's losing the backbeat on purpose and kind of doing this back and forth. It's like, where you going with this? Yeah. And it's just like confidence that he has. That's just like, God, he's the GOAT. Yeah, he can do that. He could just do quarter notes on the snare for like 4 bars, and you'd be like, gosh, even that sounds cool.
It's just the feel with which he plays as well. It's so prominent how he keeps it heavy, but he is not overbearing in a sense of like intruding on other instruments and intruding on other parts of the song.
Did you feel that was a big technique hurdle that you had to go over to get, because obviously you do have great dynamics in your playing, and so does John, but I keep saying John Bonzo, I'll say Bonzo but no one just says John. Anyways, did you feel that was as a younger player, not just age-wise but just in your progression on the instrument, a lot of times you don't have dynamics, and starting off with John Bonham, you'd think that you'd just have just level 10 the whole time. Was that something you had to work on?
Yeah, I think listening to John Bonham inspired me to play a little bit harder, because as a young person, I didn't really play hard, and I wasn't conscious of the fact that I wasn't playing hard enough. But when I look back now and see how I was playing pretty softly, and I then again, I was like 6 when I played this, so it's not like I was consciously playing super quiet, but his sound, just the sound of how he played and the power with which he played inspired me to get there and to explore that dynamic range and just play a little bit louder,
Well, I mean, that's a great number one. And then going kind of not a full 180, but a little bit to the left, Marcus Gilmore. I'll have you say it if you have it in front of you, just so I'm not taking the titles away from you.
No, totally. So Marcus Gilmore plays with the Vijay Iyer trio, and Vijay Iyer, if you don't know who he is, an amazing jazz pianist who's actually a Harvard professor, and he teaches at Harvard as well, which is pretty amazing. But he's a jazz pianist who is like in that avant-garde type. He is stretching there like the Milford Graves, Rashid Ali type stuff. And he has this one song called Action Speak, which I don't even know what time signature it is, and it's out of this world. It's an amazing song, and Marcus Gilmore is on drums, who is, if you don't know Marcus Gilmore, the grandson of Roy Haynes. I
actually don't. He's not familiar to me, which is why I have this show. So thank you.
he's I think one of the best jazz drummers of this time, and I think it's you can't dispute it because of his touch and his technique and his feel. But specifically in this song, he plays a really cool solo, which you'll see from 57 minutes 18 seconds to 57 minutes 39 seconds. Is just one portion of the solo, and in that part, he plays these really cool fills, which are really fluid, which I think is my favorite part of that performance.
Great, yeah, let's drop it in right now. Yeah, insane.
Absolutely insane. I mean, in that clip specifically, he plays those, I think, are single strokes. I still can't find out what they are. They might be doubles or singles or something. But whatever he plays, they're so fluid in the way he's just like, and I sound stupid saying that, but the dynamics and and the fluidity of how he plays those fills is unreal. And I think I found this clip fairly recently, I think 4 or so years ago, when I started really getting into looking at jazz and looking at the different artists and people. And I think Vijay Iyer, being an avant-garde jazz pianist, was a pretty far jump I could have taken. I really went into the deep end with that one. But what struck me about this is, again, the fluidity, and I try to apply that when I'm playing fills or when I'm playing grooves, not just making it super electronic or robotic. While that is a cool sound to have, and while that is a great genre to explore, it's also about making that push and pull and that tension and release. And if you go a couple seconds ahead and a couple seconds behind this beat, he juxtaposes those really fluid fills with staccato type, like on the toms and on the snare, he goes like da 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 da, really compare and contrast type fills. And it's I tried applying that as well, the juxtaposition of those fills, but the main thing is the fluidity. It's so hard not to feel so good when he plays that, because it just makes your body tense up and then release. It's amazing.
He has a few motifs that he goes back to, like you were mentioning, with the rising and the falling of the dynamics. But yeah, it doesn't matter that I don't know where the hell the beat is. It's like I was talking when we were listening. It's like the bass player's like, thank God the hi-hat's going, because I'm just following that thing right now. But yeah, effortless too. He just seems like he's just had some chamomile tea. He doesn't look like there's any grimacing on his face. He's just in it.
Zen, like that pond in his mind is just not a ripple of water anywhere.
Yeah. And I was asking what drums. Sorry, my squeaky chair. I was asking what drums, but it's like someone like that, he can just pull tones out of anything.
Exactly.
A block of wood, he'd make sound nice.
Yeah, exactly. It's just about the touch as well that he brings to the instrument. I don't know if it's just years of playing or just studying the instrument really heavily, but it's amazing what he does and what sounds he can bring out of the instrument. Like with that fill, I think it's especially if you hear the tone of his tom, it's pretty low and it's pretty loosely tuned, and getting those single strokes and getting that articulation out of that really, really loose head is incredibly hard. And I think that's another really great thing about what he does.
I should get Photoshop and impose a big fat snare drum on that high tom. All right, well, nice little product placement. Let's go to number 3, one of my favorite drummers, Mark Juliana, and you can intro it if you'd like.
Yeah, so this is a solo, one of my favorite solos. I don't know where it's from, but it's on a tune called, I think, 7 Ways by Jason Linder. And it's this solo section that Mark takes. And if you watch a couple of other Mark videos, he talks about this concept. I think Benny Greb also talks about it a little bit. Benny Greb calls it the drum alphabet, I think. But Mark Juliana calls it the 7 sounds exercise. And what it is you take the 7 sounds that are available on a snare drum, a hi-hat, and a kick drum, which is all the 7 possible combinations. One of each, the snare and the hat, and then the snare and the kick, and then all 3 together. That's a total of 7 sounds. And in that exercise, he likes to orchestrate those sounds across, say, 16th notes or something, or triplets, and use those sounds to create new combinations, new ways of playing those rhythms. And I really hear that in this solo right here. And this solo is, I think, a huge, really big, maybe as big as John Bonham, is Mark Juliana's like 7 sounds kind of thing. It really has influenced my groove, and it's really cool. So let's check it out. From 105 to 115.
Yeah, I can definitely say I'll play it, but I hear this one specifically when I listen to it in your playing, for sure. This style, not that you copy him in any way, but
no, it's totally okay. I'm guilty of it.
It was meant as a compliment.
This is it.
This is not it. This is when me and Chris did it, which is the first one of this, there was a bunch of different commercials that we kept in just for a joke, and they were ridiculous. That's the wrong one. There it is.
specifically with that clip and what goes before and after it, with the exception of that little mini hat fill thing that he does, all of those ideas are concentrated around the kick and the snare and the hat. And I think that also goes back to a lot of drum and bass type stuff, like Square Pusher, Feed Me Weird Things is the album that I really like. But a lot of drum and bass stuff and a lot of electronic stuff, I think, has led to that stuff, which is then led to the combination of more ideas based on those sounds. And I think something like playing a snare and a hat without playing a kick drum, or playing like a kick drum and a snare without playing some kind of crash, I think it was really ingenuitive for its time and really innovative for its time, and it's become a really good tool and a cool bank of just rhythms and a reservoir of really cool sounds and ideas that I really love to look at, and I feel inspired by every single time I play.
Oh yeah, no, he's a treasure trove. I mean, you can a 10-second clip of Mark playing, you can live off that for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
The cool thing about that clip too is he was doing some, I don't want to say he's pulling it from Steve Gadd, but incorporating the hi-hat stomps in his fills. It's like his hands are in the air, but there's still sound going on, so it's doing something.
Yeah.
But and again, especially in that one, he's perfectly in time or perfectly out of time whenever he wants to, but you can see him improvising in real time. You see like almost a hesitancy when you're watching it, because you can see he's working it out, but you don't hear the hesitancy. But you can see he's like, okay, I'm going to go there, and you just watch his eyes on, he's really doing it in real time. Not many players can you so obviously see them improvising.
Yeah, it's like,
if that makes sense.
It's like the ... in the scripts. Like, you can see it on page, but when you're just listening to it, you really can't hear his hesitancy that much. You just hear that flow of ideas. But you can see he's working it out, which is really cool.
That was a way better way to put that than I did, so thank you for that. All right, so speaking of Marcus Gilmore's grandpa, you said?
Yes.
Roy Haynes is next, so yeah, I want you to talk about this clip a little bit.
The legendary Roy Haynes.
Yeah.
So this song is it's actually a portion of a song called "In Walked Bud" by Thelonious Monk, who wrote this, I think, about Bud Powell, and they're pretty good friends. But that's a completely side story. In this, Roy Haynes takes a couple of choruses, which are a couple of sections of the form of solos, and at the start of his solo, he take the first chorus of the solo is just the melody. So the melody of "In Walk Bud" is ba-da dum ba-da dun da dum ba-da blah 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 blah, and you can hear that Roy Haynes completely does exactly what that is, and then he kind of diverges from the melody, which is really cool.
Sweet, yeah, let's check it out.
It's actually
The great
1958.
Roy Haynes. Yeah, that's what I'm seeing on the recording, because that I wanted to talk about how well that was recorded for 1958.
Yeah, I mean, they did a really good job, and it was live too, so it's not like they could do multiple takes or anything.
Well, and it's like, it just shows how if you just know how to mix yourself as a drummer, you can just have one crappy microphone and it sounds like this perfectly compressed, beautifully EQ'd thing. It's like, no, that's just him playing.
Yeah, it's a really hard study to like, how loud should my ride cymbal be, or is my kick too loud in this when I play this type of thing? It's a cool ability to master.
Yeah. Have you gotten to see Roy? Because I know he's still playing in New York. Well, maybe not now, but
not now.
Up until the beginning of the year.
I saw his 94th birthday celebration at the Blue Note. And the crazy thing is, he got helped up onto stage when he was going up. And right after he went on stage, he's like, all right, everybody else stay down there. And he was the only one on stage with the instruments around him. And he started doing this like really cool tap dancing routine and everything. Like red velvet suit, nice top hat and everything. He's classy. So that's one thing that stays true. And in his playing as well.
Was it one of those, like, had people help him up, and then the second he gets the drumsticks, it's like he's 25 again?
Yeah, I mean, for some of this stuff, I think age kind of got to him. It was bound to happen, and it's pretty sad that it did.
Yeah.
He's 94. It's amazing that he's still playing, which is just super. It's great. And even though sometimes, like, it might have, the sticks might have fumbled a little bit, or he had to move a little bit more to get a cymbal, all of his ideas were exactly like they were when he was in his prime, because knowledge just builds, and knowledge doesn't really go away with age, I don't think. Most of the time it doesn't, but
I know the sentiment of what you're saying.
Yeah, but it was all still there, and when he was playing, it was so perfect, because over the course of his life, I feel like he's heard every combination of anything you could hear, because he's played so much and played with such a diverse range of people, from singer-songwriters who he played with, where he was backing, to like Miles and John Coltrane and all of them. So he knew what was coming, when it was coming, and how it was going to be played, and he was right there, and he was on the dot with everything, which is really cool. And he still used what he used in Walk, but he used a lot of that in his performance, I noticed, because specifically in this song, I said he uses the melody, and then he kind of diverges from the melody. It's exactly what he did when he played a solo in the Blue Note, and I try to apply that to my playing as well. Like when I'm coming up with grooves or something, I come up with a little melody or a little motif that I think is pretty cool. I play it, I orchestrate it, I interject some sort of driving force, like a cool hi-hat pattern or something like that, and then kind of take the melody and stretch it and try to go off the melody a little bit, but still keeping a hint of that, so it keeps some kind of familiarity with the listener.
Hey guys, we'll be right back with the show, but I wanted to talk real quick about Waves Audio. I use an endless amount of their plugins, including the vocal writer for this podcast, and for my drumming, I use the SSL channel, Abbey Road Saturator, CLA drums for that easy, quick, polished sound, and many, many more. We're an affiliate member, and if this show brings you any sort of value, please click the link in the show notes to make your next purchase. It supports me directly and helps keep the show going. So, all right, now back to the top 5 ways to make soup. Oh, this next one, Steve Smith, which, kind of talk about your relationship with Steve Smith. I've seen some videos of you at his drum camp, and you've played with Vital Information a few times. So talk a little bit about that.
Steve Smith, I actually first heard him when I went to Zakir Sen, who's a master tabla player in India and around the world. I think he lives in California now, but he's an absolute master tabla player, and he was doing a show where I live in New Jersey, and Steve Smith was like the accompanying drummer, but he was just playing like brushes and I think a cymbal and a hat or something.
That's all he needs.
That's all he needed. And he was selling CDs after, so I picked up one of his CDs, which was Vital Information Live One Great Night. And I heard this song called Interwoven Rhythms, which I think is the song that you're about to play, and it uses this thing called conical, which is it's a South Indian way of expressing rhythm, and it's quite similar to like saying tabla notes or something like that. It's just a little bit different in the actual words, but the concept is the same, and it's a really cool bank of rhythm. And when I heard it, I was struck with how new the rhythm was to me, because by then I think I was like 10 or something, and I was really into, I think at that point I really loved like Megadeth and Iron Maiden, especially, and Metallica and all that stuff. So
yeah,
it was a really, really like complete left turn, and I was struck by how new the rhythms were. So I went to a couple of his shows in New York at Birdland, at Blue Note, and at one point I was kind of just air drumming the stuff and like speaking, and he noticed that I was there, and he was like, "Wait, who is this guy, and why does he know what I'm playing?" kind of thing, because I had listened to it so many times. So I met him after, and I went to a drum camp with him called Drum Fantasy Camp, and Dave Weckl and Jojo Mayer and Benny Greb were also there. And in that camp, you have a night where you can play, like in front of the people who are teaching, with all the masters. And it's a jam night, and you play with this house band. So I played one of Steve Smith's tunes called 7.5 in front of him. Scary, very scary, very nerve-wracking.
Yeah, the definition of mortifying, yeah.
The definition of mortifying, yes. And I played that tune, and I guess ever since we've been in touch, I've played with him a couple of times, and he's been so open, and he's super, super nice, and he just loves to share the information that he has and the knowledge that he has about the instrument, and especially about conical, and that he first introduced me to conical and taught me the basics of what it is. He kind of threw that on me by saying, "Here, let's perform," and I'd never heard conical really ever before, so I learned, and it's great.
Has that helped you do rhythms over the bar line? Because, I mean, all those rhythms are just kind of not within the 4/4 common time at all.
Yeah.
You know, people should definitely check out conical, because Steve's doubled down on that the last probably 10, 15 years of his career. Mm-hmm. But, yeah, how has that helped you into more modern music?
Yeah. Conical and, I guess, Eastern music in general has this concept called a T-high, which is a grouping of 3 phrases that are identical at the end of like one big phrase. So you'll have like your phrase for 16, 32, whatever bars, and at the end of the phrase you'll play like da 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 but da 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 da, like 3 times in a row with like a little space in between. And that was the first thing that I noticed when it came to playing over the bar and playing differently. But other than that, conical has a ton of polyrhythms, and like you'll see 74 over 17. Like, what? Like, that's going a little out there, but
it's a little much, yeah.
It's a little much to fit into like drumming, but the stuff that they have and the sheer bank of rhythm that conical is something that I just keep learning from, and it's amazing how you can fit those rhythms into grooves and into solos, and they sound completely new, yet they're thousands and thousands of years old.
No, it's awesome, and I think one of the most recent drum fantasy camps you've done with him, there's a video of you playing behind him. He's standing in front of like a Nord keyboard, and he's doing these rhythms, and you're hitting it with him every time he's doing his like, you know, hand movement. And I mean, you're so focused on what you're playing, but there's a few times you can just see on his face, he's like, this kid is killing it. It's so awesome. He just looks so happy that you're doing it, and it's fun to see Steve Smith, and then knowing that, you know, you're there in it, and it's all, yeah, you're just making him happy. That's so cool.
Yeah, he's so nice. I can't stress it enough how nice he is, and how accepting he is about everything.
He's a huge patron saint of getting world drumming, you know, around the world. So, but yeah, let's actually listen to what your choice is. So, Interwoven Rhythms, and it's 105 to 115 from this. I mean, I'm sure you can listen to the whole thing, but that's the section we chose, or you chose. And again, I mean, those drums sound so sick on that.
Yeah, he plays Sonar, I think. He just came out with his own kit now, and his own snare as well.
Oh, I'm surprised he hasn't had it already. I mean, he's been playing Sonar for a while now.
He has some 30th anniversary or 25th anniversary of him with Sonar.
Yeah, it's so funny. Some people would only know him from his Journey days, and it's like, man, he's so much more. I mean, in and of itself, those drum parts are also, you know, you can have a masterclass on those as well.
Yeah.
But If you're ready to move on, yeah, let's go to this would be number 6. So Elvin Jones.
Yeah. Elvin Jones. Elvin Jones. He's another
You just
one
move on to the next one.
one of the greatest drummers like ever. I did a really, really intense like study of him a couple of years ago. I think 2 years ago now. But it was just like only Elvin Jones for like 9-10 months of it was just his music. I really didn't listen to any other drummer unless I had to for like gigs or something like that, or if I'd listen to something. But what I noticed in his playing, especially with the John Coltrane Quartet, is that, well, a little bit backstory to this. Elvin Jones was kind of a rule breaker of jazz norms in every single sense. Like he was one of the first to pioneer the polyrhythmic stuff, and he went like over the bar, and he went. Now we know that's also in conical and stuff, but in the West, he went like this really free time feel, like when he was soloing and stuff, but he always stayed to like one kind of central time. But the biggest thing that I like to apply to my playing is his use of the ride cymbal. And I think before him, it was commonly known to play the ride cymbal like the jazz ride time, the ding ding da ding ding da ding ding da ding, right? And when people would play that, it would just be that, like in solos. Like a great example is Saida's Song Flute, which is another John Coltrane song, and I think it's I forget the drummer on. I'm really blanking, but in that song, in John Coltrane's solo, I think it's Art Taylor's. But in the solo, the drummer keeps the ride time and basically keeps it the whole time, the ding ding da ding ding da ding. But what Elvin Jones does is he uses the ride cymbal as like a separate instrument, and he like uses it to converse with the other instrument. So like in this clip, which is Elvin Jones playing Afro Blue with the John Coltrane Quartet, I think live on a TV show, so it's a little more tame than they would usually play. But he uses, in this specific section, I think it's really cool how he uses the ride cymbal, which is something I've tried to apply to my playing a lot.
Cool. All right. Yeah, I'll play it. It's going to be minute 226 to 242.
First of all, I don't know how he plays in that flannel. Like, he's sweating so much and he stays in that flannel. That's the real focus. No, but in that part, you can hear how with McCoy Tyner, who's the pianist, he is using the ride cymbal to kind of play contrary rhythms with him. So McCoy Tyner going like da da ba 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 da ba ba or something like that. He'll do the opposite, or he'll do the flip, or he'll play with them. Like if it was ba 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 ba, he go like dun da dun da dun da dun da dun dun da dun da dun, and kind of like do a conversation. Like how I like to think about it is like they're arguing over something, or talking about something. Like I don't know, if one wanted pizza and one wanted like burgers or something. That's what I like to think about. It makes it easier to understand, definitely. But
sure, yeah.
In that respect, I like to apply that conversational aspect of that. I like to apply to like my kick and snare, which goes back to the Mark Juliana stuff, where he uses the kick and snare and the hat for that 7 sounds. I like to apply that when I'm doing like fills or something, or whether I'm in a groove and I just want to make it adds a little sauce, a little spice or something, and use those two instruments, not just parts of the drum set, instruments they are, I guess, to just make a conversation, to make it a little bit more interesting. And then the other part of this clip that it really, really inspired me is how he kept the ride cymbal as a driving force. So like in a lot of my grooves, I'll start with an idea or a melody, but I'll always end and make sure there's some kind of continuity somewhere, just so it keeps moving. And it just makes it feel a lot better when you know that it's going somewhere. So yeah, that's what I like about the ride cymbal part. It's really interesting how he does that and how he did that throughout the rest of his career, whether it be with the organ trio where he was like on the ride cymbal, he was playing a different pattern, like he was playing like a lot of quarter notes on the ride cymbal when he was playing with organs, but with John Coltrane he was playing a lot of this complex stuff where he was conversing. So it's just dependent on the situation for him, but that's what really inspired me.
I love it. I have nothing to add because you said that so well. So yeah, let's just go to the next one, which is the Winstons, Amen Brother, the Amen Break. So yeah, what's the backstory on this guy?
In this clip, again, it was at a show at one of those performance-based School of Rocks, and we were doing a funk show, and I got assigned, I guess, Amen Brother to learn. So I learned Amen Brother, and there's a section that's been sampled like 4,000 sometimes called the Amen Break. Like you can hear it on Straight Outta Compton. It's on Can't Knock the Hustle by Jay-Z. Like it has that they sampled this drum groove, so it's pretty widely known. But just in this groove, the drummer has the opportunity to take the solo, and you'll hear it when you hear it. It's just a break in all the music, but he sticks to that groove and that simplicity, which is really cool, which I love.
It's also sometimes that's the hardest thing to do, is to just like not even open up a hi-hat, just keep it going. All right, yeah, it's 126 to 133 in this little guy.
Oh, just that part. It's so good. It's just something about how he plays it. And he doesn't play anything else but the groove. It's just the groove is perfect in that situation. And the only thing he does is he plays that little like the offbeat boom boom bop
boom, yeah.
Like it just simplicity is key in this song, and knowing where to put yourself in the limelight and knowing where to like stick back is, I think, the key point that I learned from the Amen Break. Also from a lot of James Brown, Funky Drummer, Sex Machine, all of those songs. Is a lot of Clyde Stubblefield kind of give the drummer some, but he gives the drummer the time to shine when he gives him the pocket. So that's what I learned, just keeping simplicity, but keeping the groove at the end of the day, because the drummer's job, whether you like it or not, is to keep the groove, and is to keep a sense of time. Oh no, I said it.
You said it.
Like, we don't get paid to solo. I wish we did. That'd be the best.
Well, then I would make no money. Not that I do now, but
yeah, that it's the drummer's, I guess, job to keep the groove and keep the time, and that's so perfectly what he does here. And a lot of Clyde Stubblefield stuff has that as well. So that's what I learned, to just keep the time, keep it real, and keep it in the pocket.
Yeah, and going back to the one before that, the Elvin Jones ride cymbal in this one, that right hands is the whole time. It's just like robotic, but still has feel. But yeah, going back to what you were saying about that one push, it's kind of like, and I know people have talked about this before when it comes to drums and just parts in general, but it's kind of like Jerry Seinfeld never cusses. And then the one time he says bitch, it's like it has such an impact, and you're like, whoa, it makes the joke that much better.
Yeah.
It's the same with that. If you just groove, but you have that one kind of displaced backbeat or that push on the cymbal, it's like it's the release of the gods. You know, it's just so much more fulfilling. You know,
if he had done a huge drum solo and then included that backbeat, I don't think it would have been as monumental and as influential
100%.
as it is now. Also,
100%.
would have been sampled. Also, you probably wouldn't have heard Straight Outta Compton. So.
Yeah, exactly. All right, last but not least, even though I guess this is not really any more modern than some of the ones, it feels like the more modern of your choices. So it's The Real Me by The Who.
Yes. Again, School of Rock. I mean, I have a lot of thanks to give to them for introducing me to such great music. But for The Real Me, it's not, I don't think, one of the Who's most popular songs. At least it's not on their top 10 on Spotify. But to me, I think it's like one of my top 3 greatest Who songs, along with like Won't Get Fooled Again, and like Bob O'Reilly or something like that. But this song, the section I picked, I think exemplifies the energy that Keith Moon brings to the drums the most. But the sheer energy throughout the whole song, throughout all the verses, all the choruses, is unreal. And it I guess goes back to a little bit of the Bonham stuff, but about keeping the drums a little bit in the front and just pushing yourself a little bit, and pushing the sound a little bit without intruding on every other instrument. And even though Keith Moon has a bunch of fills here, it perfectly fits the energy of the song, and which he keeps up beautifully.
All right, so this was going to be 25 seconds into this song to about 38 seconds.
Can you see the real me, doctor? Doctor! Can you see the real me, doctor? Whoa, doctor!
Just the energy. I mean, it's crazy how Keith Moon, after a whole show, or if this was the start of the show, I don't know, could keep energy like that the whole time and keep the audience engaged, and keep it going, like blowing up his bass drum and keep it going tight like that. It's that crazy how much energy he brings, I think, is the final point I can give. I mean, I learned from that because playing through a show, I guess you have to keep energy up so the audience can also feel the same way, because we're also entertainers, us musicians, like when we play live. So keeping that up, and also while also of course not intruding on any other instrument, I think is one of the most important things that we can do as drummers, I guess. So that's my song for energy. I mean, there are a ton of other songs that you can cite as being energy inspiring type songs, but this is just mine.
Yeah, it's a delicate balance to showmanship versus musicality, to there's other people on stage and the conversations you have to have. But again, yeah, no one wants to go see a record pushed play, you know?
Yeah.
So you got to sacrifice some, and usually it's the musicality in my playing, and technique. But I mean, you being on Broadway, I mean, I'm sure you really had to be, the showmanship and the musicality had to be both kind of top notch.
Yes.
So you were kind of forced to not be able to make too many sacrifices.
Yeah, it was about putting your best foot forward every single night, and kind of no sacrifices kind of thing. If you didn't feel good, well, tough luck. You know, you had to. There's an audience of 1,600 people that you had to satisfy, and at the end of the day, it didn't matter if you were feeling off or you're feeling sick or like you were hurting, because it was so worth it when you hear how the audience feels and how your hard work pays off.
Speaking of that, how many subs were you allowed a month? Is there a certain allotment, or?
I forget. I think it was.
It just shows how little time you took off. If you don't even know.
Over
You're
my
a workhorse.
Over my like 2 years, I think I took 2 days off.
Jeez,
No,
man.
three. One was I was sick, and 2 I went to Virginia and like to the beach, I guess. But
Slacker.
and I was forced to take off then. I loved it so much.
Yeah.
I loved it so much.
Yeah. Well, that's your 8, man, and I really appreciate you being on the show. I mean, I'm assuming if people are listening to this, or if you're on Instagram, know about drumming podcasts, you know Raghav. But if people do want to find you, for some reason this is the first time they know about you, where can they find you on Instagram and all that jazz?
Yeah, Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, I guess now, at Raghav Drummer, Raghav Drummer. Yeah, follow me if you want. If you don't, that's cool too.
That's a very confident way to put that. I love it. I'll just bookend that. All right, Raghav, thank you so much, man, and I'll talk to you soon.
Right, yeah, talk to you soon.
That's the show. Be sure to check out bigfatsnaredrum.com and follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at bigfatsnaredrum. The audio you're hearing was edited in part by Isotope RX8 Audio Editor, so go check that out at isotope.com. All right, cheers. I actually put up a peace sign, knowing that There's no video.